Well, we've got so between the barbecue sauce, we have a barbecue sauce business. We have Brogan's racing business. We have the consulting business that I'm getting going off the ground now. The pressure washing business actually has like four different divisions within it. So that's almost like four miniature businesses. They're just under the same umbrella, for legal purposes. So really, honestly, if you break it down, we've got four, five, six, seven different businesses going on.
Hey you, I'm Mark, husband of one, father of three, maker of puns, climber of trees, grower of businesses, pitcher of tents, occasional cutter of cheese, word nerd, and lover of families. Oh no. Oh no, not yet. No. Oh, here he comes. Where's my oar? Showed that Kraken who's boss. At least until like 2 p.m. this afternoon. I think I'll be due for another attack by then. Let's jump into it. Hey, all of you bandits and chilies. This episode is an interview with James Carter, who has, if my count is correct, I think he has about 17 businesses and 104 children. I can't remember exactly. We'll get into it. But it's great to have you here, James. How are you?
Good, very well today. Thanks for having me, Mark.
Thanks for coming back. This interview, embarrassingly enough, I had recorded this. I alluded to this interview in our very first episode, or in the promo thereof, and I recorded it, and then subsequently lost the recording. So James has been kind enough to come back and chat with me again, which is really great. So, give us a bit of a picture of your life as a family-oriented business grower, James. What's the background of your sort of family, the backdrop to that, and then your businesses? What are you doing at the moment?
Yeah, I'll give you the quick overview and then I'll give you a little more detail. But so the quick overview is this. Between my wife and I, we have 10 children, five dogs. We have four active businesses, five working on the facilitator, the coaching deal. And so, yeah, there's never a dull moment in our life.
Nice. I love that it's like when you started saying 4 or 5, I thought the fifth one might have been one that was being, phased out. But no, that's a new one.
Yeah.
That's great. That's
Yeah. I'm a glutton for punishment.
great. Well, does it feel that way?
No, you know what? I totally enjoy everything we're doing. Like I wouldn't change anything. You and I have talked about it, and I know we'll talk a little more about it later, but like the faith and just believing in the path that God's put you on, and you got to remember that in the good times and the bad times that He's got you here, and it's up to you to do something with it, something positive with it. And there's a lot of eyes watching you, especially with our kids. They're all pretty well on their own. We really only got one still under high school age. The rest of them are out on their own doing their own thing. But you got a lot of eyes watching you and how you handle things and how you handle success and also how you handle the hard times. So
Yeah. Well, let's dive into that a little bit with regards to faith in like practical terms within your family and within your business. How does that look for you? What does that mean for you?
yeah, so I've I've kind of got a blind faith, and I'll tell you how I came about it. I was in the car business for 15 years, and got to the point where it I had just outgrown it or whatever. I was working 6, 7 days a week, 70, 80 hours a week, and I wasn't building anything for myself. And I was looking around at what I had built for everybody else through those 10, 15 years. And for, I think, close to 2 years, every night I prayed the same thing. God, just, because at this time we had, I think, six of our kids under the age of 18. So you kind of grow dependent on that income, right? Like that's what gets you. That's the hard part to leave.
Yep, that'll do it.
Yeah, that'll do it. So I had a nice six-figure income from the car business, and think life was good other than the fact that I absolutely did not enjoy my job one bit. I mean, it got to the point in the end where I didn't enjoy it at all. But for the last 2 years, every night I prayed the same thing. I just prayed, God, you know how much I don't enjoy this. I don't know why you're putting me through this. Just give me something that I can do that I enjoy and I make the same amount of money. For
Mm,
2 years, I prayed that, and nothing,
yeah,
nothing other than other offers from other car dealerships,
yeah.
which is what I did not want. And crazy enough, one night I thought about it. I had really been thinking about it a lot because I was just so burnt out in the car business. And one night, I changed my prayer and I said, you know what, God, forget about the money. Just put me in a position that I can just simply take care of my family and I can touch others in a positive way. And if you'll do that for me, I said, I will never forget this. And I will give everybody the benefit of the doubt as they come through my path and across my way. I'll be forgiving. I'll try to live my life the way Jesus did. And by golly, no joking, within a week, this business opportunity for the one that we own now came up. Like within a week.
Yeah.
And kind of how that came about even strengthened my faith more. Working the car business, I had basically 1 day off a week. And this guy had a business for sale selling the garbage. It was cleaning garbage cans. It was a big
Yeah.
trailer that cleaned the bins. And he lived about an hour and a half away from where we live. And so on my day off, my only day off, I drove all the way up there. I looked at it, I talked it over with him, came home, talked it over with my wife, and I told him, I said, okay, I get the same day off next week. I think it was Tuesday. I said, I'll be up here next Tuesday to give you an answer. And went home, talked it over with my wife. And that particular thing just wasn't a good fit for us because basically I would have had to move the business an hour and a half away and start with zero, like
Mm,
literally zero. We started with almost zero, but we at least had something to bring a little bit of income in, and that would not have afforded us that opportunity. So the next Tuesday, I was sitting at the stoplight getting ready to leave the town we live in and drive an hour and a half, and I thought to myself, why in the world am I going to drive an hour and a half there and an hour and a half home on my only day off during the week to tell this guy no, I'm not interested? Like, why am I not just calling him? And there was a little voice in the back of my head that said, well, you're going to do that because you made a commitment to this guy. And I thought, yeah, you know what? You're right. Like it all starts with, fulfilling your commitments. That's a big one. That's very close to the top of the list. So I drove all the way up there, hour and a half, told the guy, no, it wasn't going to work, whatever. We talked for about a half an hour. I turned to walk out of his shop and I literally put my hand on his doorknob to open the door. And I noticed a little pressure washing trailer in the corner. And I said, well, what's that? He goes, well, that's a pressure washing business. I'm trying to sell that too. And he's like, God, that might actually work for you because that I do have some clients, that you could service to at least get you started. And that was it. I mean, it all kind of snowballed from there pretty quickly. But my faith comes from those two things. The moment I changed my prayer from, just asking all about me and take care of me to change it to put me in a position to help and change others in a positive way. And then the little voice that popped in my head that day and said, no, you need to drive up there.
mm,
And kind of since then, I've always been a, a Christian and, believer. But my faith, I would say at some moments here and there wavered. And since those two things really, truthfully, my faith has not wavered one bit. And I have just trusted 100% that God never promised us he would make it easy for us. He just promised us he would give us the opportunity.
mm,
So I remember that too when things get tough sometimes. And I'm like, nope, he gave me this opportunity. It's working. And I take care of others. I give employees second chances where a lot of other people might not give them a second chance. And it works, man. Like it
mm.
works.
So there's quite a lot in that, like from the six figure income of your established job that you're
Yeah.
familiar with, as much as you might not have liked it. Like you said, it was helping you to support at that point, six kids at home and anything else that you've got going on. So then it's still quite a leap of faith to jump into that opportunity and say, yeah, I'm gonna leave that behind. I'm gonna take on this pressure washing opportunity, this business, which even if it was well enough established where you have that sort of income level maybe projected, you still don't know all of how that's going to go and everything. So, how did that? How was that transition for you? How did you make that choice, and then how did that business take off?
Yeah, well, yeah, that was crazy because, like you said, we went from six figures to my very first year. I only paid myself, I think it was like $23,500 the first year.
Yeah.
Um, so, and I knew that going in, like I knew that I was going to be able to generate the income because I had talked to a few people ahead of time, friends with large construction companies in town that I knew I'd pick up their business. Um, but it was my first ever foray into entrepreneurship. So, like, how much of that, yeah, if I can do $70,000 worth of business my first year, how much of that's you got expenses and everything else in there?
Mm-hmm.
I had no idea. I mean, I'd never done any of this before, so it was really, truly kind of a leap of faith. And how we did it, I had a lot of really good guidance along the way, an encouragement, and then um, my wife pretty much, bless her heart, my wife pretty much became a single parent for 2 years
Mm.
because I just dove into it because I am have always been. I am the type. My personality is once I commit to something, burn the ships. Like, we're done, burn the ships. There's no option to not fail. Like, we are going all in, which is what we did. But to make that work, so basically, my first 2 full years, um, March through November, my typical schedule would be, I would a lot of my work in the beginning was overnight cleaning sidewalks for businesses and stuff. So I would go out, I would work all night. I'd come home about 6 in the morning. I'd sleep till about 8. I'd get up. I'd go do door to door foot traffic, whether it was residential or commercial.
Mm.
And I'd come home about 11, 12. I'd maybe sleep for an hour. I'd go out and do any residential or daytime work I had until uh, maybe 5 or 6. Um, and then I'd come home and sleep for a couple hours, and then I'd get up at 9 o'clock then at night and go do the overnight work. And that was it, like, for 2 solid years. And then in the winter, from November to March, I have a very good friend that owns a large landscaping snow removal business. I would literally work 80, 90, 100 hours a week, whatever he would give me, just to make it work. And
Yeah.
um, that's the one thing when people ask me about, if you're not buying an established business, right? Because, like, our business, when we bought it, it had like 50 some $1,000s worth of work that did come with it, but that's not much. Like, that's not going to replace a six-figure income, as you know.
Mm.
um, so we basically did build it from scratch, and a lot of the work he gave us was in the town he lived in, which was an hour and a half drive each way. So I just did that basically to get by for the first year, and then got rid of that work after the first year. Um, so when you're building it from scratch, it's like, you truly, that's your commitment. Like, that's it. That's what you do for 2 to 3 years. And then at that point, you reevaluate.
Yeah, obviously the fire under you of having having six dependents helps with
Yeah.
that, and for you to, like you say, it's like burn the ships, got to make this work, and really hustle for a couple of years very solidly. I feel like that same fire though could have kept you in the role that you were in previously, because it would be really hard to leave based on it being something that you weren't happy doing, when you could just look at it as, okay, I may not be happy doing this job, I may hate this job, but I've got six kids at home, and
Yeah.
this is what I need to be doing, right? So what year was this, and where did you take that business to? Do you still have that business?
Yep. And so we did that March of 2016. So almost 9 years
Yeah.
to the day. And we took that, I think our first year in business, like I said, we did like between 55 and $60,000 worth of revenue. And last year, we did 1.68 million. And then this year we're projected we should be pretty close to 2 million if we don't hit 2 million. And but it's kind of to the point where this is like I've entered the fun part of
Mm.
business, right?
Well,
Um,
yeah. I mean, I'm betting that you're working a lot less now.
oh, absolutely. And one thing that I would, I told you I'm going to start helping with one client in the consulting world or coaching world. And one thing I really stress is get your systems in order ahead of time. Like, Joshua Latimer is huge proponent of that. And he's one of the main reasons I'm where I'm at today is because I listen to him. But get your systems in place. And the sooner you get them in place, the easier it's going to be in the long run. And so our company is very systemized. We left January 27th. I left town and went to Florida and spent an entire month down there and didn't come back till March 1st, and probably talked to my employees maybe two or three times while we were gone because they needed me.
Yeah.
I called them sometimes. I wouldn't hear from them for a week. So I was like, ugh,
You start to get anxious.
are phone lines even still working? So yeah, I'd just call and go, hey, how's everything going? Oh, it's going great. Are you having fun? Yeah, I'm having fun. You guys need anything? No, we're good. Okay, cool. So that's the level of systemization we've got in
Mm.
place. It's just kind of it's before, as you're growing a business, which I'm sure you can relate, you've got this monster, right?
Mm.
You create this little baby monster.
It starts out cute.
Yeah, it starts out cute, absolutely, and then it gets really ugly, really.
Oh, look, it's trying to bite me. Ah.
Yeah, because you have got to constantly feed it. And if you are not standing there right next to it feeding it, like you're going backwards. But now with all the systems and everything else we've got in place, we've got to the point where everybody understands their roles really, really, really well. And the monster almost feeds itself.
Yeah.
Like it just
You've
goes.
you've just about trained the monster to be domesticated and self-sufficient. Um, yeah, just carrying that monster analogy for a second, I feel like if you don't stand there feeding it, it's either it's gonna eat you or it's gonna
Yeah.
die, and
Yes.
it's gonna starve to death, and
Absolutely.
neither of those things are good for you. I feel like systems is something which I, in the early days, thought I understood, and it was.
Hmm.
This is actually kind of similar to the faith question because it was kind of this obscure, nebulous concept, which is like, oh, systemize a business and so on and so forth. And you mentioned about getting your systems in place ahead of time. I really struggled with that before I'd figured this out. I would have this tendency to either over systemize or under systemize pretty much everything, and I didn't really know what made a good system and then how good systems work together. So, how would you describe, like, when you say that your business is systemized, what does that look like on a practical level?
Yeah, absolutely. And I struggled with the same thing in the beginning, and that's why I took so many of Josh's courses and stuff, because what I learned is in order to implement, that's fine. That's one thing for another guy who knows what he's talking about to tell me, hey, you need systems and you need to implement them.
Mm.
Okay, well, that's cool. Now back to exactly what you just said, Mark. So, what is a system and when do I need to implement it? So
Yeah,
you've got to learn what a system is and where a system is needed, because it is really easy to over systemize it. And you don't want that. And so, once I really grasped the concept of that through hours and hours and hours of watching Josh's videos and taking notes and reviewing them and rewatching videos, once I really grasp the concept of it, it's to me, it's pretty easy, and I think I can explain it pretty easily. If you've got a task that recurs, whether it recurs every day, multiple times a day, or once a month, if you've got a recurring task in place, write down on a sheet of paper from beginning to end how you handle that task when it needs to recur. And you can do the same thing with, if you're in a certain business that you have certain questions or maybe common questions or complaints from the customers, you can actually systemize that too. Put it down on paper. When this question comes up, this is how we answer it, and this is what we default to. And it's just kind of like anything else. Especially for me, I'm a hands-on guy. Like the more you do it, just the easier it gets.
Mm,
And
mm,
you just sit down and make a list. Okay, how are we going to handle office supplies? Well, how we've got office supplies systemized is really easy. We've got a list of every office supply in the office. Next to that, I've actually taken it one step further than some guys do. Next to that, I also have where we order it from and how much we pay for it.
mm,
So periodically, I'll have my office manager go through and price check. Like, hey, should we be getting this from somewhere else? So you've got a list of the the supply that you have, where you order it from, how much you pay for it. You've got a Next to that, you have a number of how many should be on the shelf when I take inventory, and next to that, you have a number that says how many do I order when the number on the
mm.
shelf goes below that number.
Yeah.
And then you've got a blank field in the last one, and that's once a week. My office manager, it takes her 10 minutes now. She'll go through and she'll write the numbers in, and then she'll compare the numbers to what should be on the shelf. She knows what to order, she knows where to order it from. And in a period of maybe a half an hour, she's got inventory under control for the entire office. That's kind of an example, I guess, of what I would consider like a system.
Yeah, perfect. I have this difficult employee. He's actually been with us right from the start, and I'm curious if you can relate to this because when implementing systems, this guy would just never follow it at all.
Yeah.
It was me. I'd write the system, but I would never do it that way. When I formalized it
Yeah.
and said, step one is this, step two is that, but then when it comes to actually me implementing it, I'd be like, oh yeah, I can, but I know that I can skip step two because I'm special.
Yeah.
And I feel like that is one thing which in the beginning really slowed me down, where it's then hard to define whether the system is a good one or not. Because if your first reaction is to cut the corners, then probably any employees would be as well. So
Yeah.
how have you found that? What's your experience been with following your own systems?
Yeah, absolutely. I giggle a little bit because 100% can relate to what you just said. Like it's one thing to have a system in place, but a system is no good if it's not followed. And if you can't get the employees to get on board to follow it. So in the beginning, I would write all the systems. And then what I found was, like you said, they would shortcut them. And I would
Mm,
even maybe find myself shortcutting them. So at that point, I'm asking, well, wait a second, maybe I need to revise my system. I'm even shortcutting it. I can understand why they would do it. And so just a year ago, actually about a year and a half ago, was when we finally got to the point revenue wise where I figured that the budget could absorb a full time office manager. And when I brought her on, I was really struggling getting her to do what I needed her to do. Um, like the system thing, she wouldn't take inventory in the office, and then we'd run out of something, and then I could explain to her, hey, do you understand why now we do this? And what I found was I sat down with her and said, listen, this is the system I have in place. This is the vision. This is the end result, what we need to get. Take my system for a starter, and how about you put your own system together for me? You
mm,
tell me what you can do to tweak my system to keep things in place. And what I found is if you actually let the employees have a little input into the system,
mm.
because theoretically they should. Now, looking back on it, hindsight's 2020, if they're doing the work and you trust them as an employee, they should probably get a little input on it.
Yeah.
So what I found is it's a lot easier to get new systems implemented and get people doing them if they get a little input into how the system works and why.
Yeah, for sure. We've actually just redone some maintenance systems, and doing it that way made it a lot quicker because I knew in building it out that this is not perfect. This does not need to be. I'm not trying to complete the task of like we have the new maintenance systems revised and they're all done and it's perfect. I just need to get the framework in place enough to get it off the ground, and then do exactly what you just said, and have them revise it, have a feedback loop from there, and then they can tell me, you know what, I skipped step two as well. Oh, isn't that weird? Maybe we don't need step two, or maybe
Yeah,
that's just step 1.1. And yeah, and so it takes the pressure off on that front, and then they're more likely to be involved because they're involved. They're more likely to be happy to do it, and to do it properly, and have a better understanding of the intent behind what it is you're trying to achieve as well. Um,
yeah,
so
absolutely. And then just like us, the more they do it, the better they get at it.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
And the more you have those conversations where you show your willingness to involve them,
yep,
that builds that relationship, and then they might be willing to say something that they previously weren't. Like, you know what? There's this other thing I've been wondering about. Like, why do we do it this way? This is really like, no offense, it's kind of dumb. um,
yeah.
yeah, so how would you say that that translates across into your family life, the domestic economy, and systems within a household? Household like yours, which has been very busy over the years. What sort of systems do you have there?
Well, so I'll be honest with you. With as many kids as we have and what we have going on, and Brogan, you and I have talked about off the podcast a little bit. My son, he's 14 years old and he races sprint cars on a national level. So we're all over. I mean, we put 70 to 80,000 miles a year on with that.
Just for context as well, that's one of the other businesses is your.
Yes.
I can't remember how that's structured. Is that essentially like merchandising around his racing? Is that what that is? Or
Yep.
yeah,
Absolutely. And
yeah.
we've from very early on, even though you're putting most of the money into it to begin with, we've been doing it for 3.5 years now. And even though you're putting most of the money into it to begin with, it's not, racing as a whole does not generate a lot of money. But you've still got to treat it as a business, right? Like it's still got to have budgets and it's still got to have, you know, you have sponsorships that people do sponsor you, money coming in there. Look, you mentioned merchandising. We do quite a bit of merchandising, so we get money coming in there. And now, as we're getting more into it, those incomes are getting bigger and bigger, and we're having to put less and less into it. And I truly believe that it's because we looked at it as a business from the very beginning. Like
Mm.
this was not a hobby for us. This is a business, and we're going to run it like a business.
Just as a quick footnote, I feel like Brogan's autobiography about how his racing was run as a business from the beginning, but like there's not a lot of money in racing. The title should be "Race to the Bottom." So I'm just throwing
Yeah,
that out
yeah, absolutely. You know how to make $10 million in racing, right?
there. No,
Start out with 100 million. Start
yeah,
out with 100 million.
that's great. That's
Yeah,
great. I was
yeah,
this is like I feel like this would be quite similar. Actually, I was listening to a thing about sailing recently, and there's people that just like sail around the world, like they live on their boats and sail around the world. They call them cruisers, and they have a saying which is that everything is broken on your boat, you just don't know it yet.
yeah.
I think that's great. I think that applies to
That's
so many things. I'm sure that's the same with racing.
that applies to racing 100%. It's broken. You just don't know it yet. And
Yeah.
it won't break at a convenient time. But to get not to get too far off track, you asked how like systems apply to our personal life. Well, we've got so between the barbecue sauce, we have a barbecue sauce business. We have Brogan's racing business. We have the consulting business that I'm getting going off the ground now. The pressure washing business actually has like four different divisions within it. So that's almost like four miniature businesses. They're just under the same umbrella, for legal purposes. So really, honestly, if you break it down, we've got four, five, six, seven different businesses going on. So that's all we do, right? Like
Mm.
we get up, we work, and at night, my wife's working on the merchandising for Brogan. We're out in the shop, or I'm kind of scuttling him around because now the more he's getting into racing, like on a national level, he's got sponsor commitments. He's got, the podcast tonight at 5:30. That's for him. He's got podcasts maybe once a month or something. So we've got to keep his schedule going there. And so personally, the systems from the businesses that's all we do kind of rules our lives.
Yeah.
We've got the schedule in place. My wife is the scheduler. She keeps track of all of that. I don't know where I'd be without her. I would be lost. I'd be driving around aimlessly wondering what I was supposed to do next.
Yeah. Yeah. I know the feeling.
So she keeps us going there. Yeah. So she keeps us going there and she keeps the schedule. And then our oldest son now, he's been hired as a full time crew member for Brogan's race team. So he keeps that schedule going. And then, my work schedule is pretty flexible at this point. And then we've integrated the barbecue sauce into the merchandising on the race part of it. So it kind of all overlaps. There's really no,
Yeah. It's sort of a way of being.
yeah, yeah, it's kind of all just kind of one big monster now.
Yeah. It's just got, yeah, many, many heads and additional tentacles. Um,
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah. So, there's so many bits in there that I kind of want to pick at. It's hard to know.
Yeah,
Talk about the barbecue sauce. You just thrown that in there. It's like, oh yeah, we also have a barbecue
yeah,
sauce business, and that to me is a very, everything else kind of makes sense. I can see the pathway of how Brogan's racing comes along maybe as initially as a passion, and then you treat it as a business, and then that's how that kind of becomes its own thing. And the other businesses stem from each other, and even the coaching stems from your experience in business. But barbecue sauce.
yeah,
How does one get into the barbecue sauce business? What's the barbecue sauce game like these days?
yeah. Believe me, if you would have told me, if God would have whispered in my ear 3 years ago, you're gonna own a barbecue sauce company someday, I would have been like, "What? Are you sure you're talking to the right guy?" But yeah, how that came about was kind of like we talked. Everything's kind of intertangled. So 3 years ago, the barbecue sauce company we own, a good friend of mine from high school started that business and kind of developed it. And we got 6 different flavors. And he kind of started it and developed it and got it off the ground. And then 3 years ago, I talked to him about sponsoring Brogan's racing program. And I said, hey, we've got good social media following. We can get you out there. We might be able to sell you some barbecue sauce. And he said, well, I tell you what, I'll make you a deal. And basically, he gave me X amount to start the year. He said, I'll give you 10 cases of barbecue sauce. That's my sponsorship to you. It's like $1,000 worth of barbecue sauce. And whatever you guys sell it for, you can keep. So if you can sell it for $10 a bottle, you get to keep it. And then if you need more, I'll sell it to you for wholesale cost and you can continue selling it and go from there. Well, we actually did pretty well with it and we sold quite a bit of it the first year or so. And he's this guy that started this business. He's kind of a serial entrepreneur. He's started and sold 5 or 6, 7 different businesses. And he had kind of taken that where he wanted. And he approached me at the end of the first year and he said, hey, you guys are selling the heck out of this. Why don't you just buy the company? And I was like, oh, interesting. Yeah, you're right. We are selling a lot of it. But at that time, I had my hands so full. I just told him, I said, I said, now's not the right time. I said, maybe someday. Well, then a good friend of mine, him and I were talking one day, and his kids are all grown and out of the house. And he's always wanted to kind of get into something as, kind of a part time business venture to see if that's kind of for him or not. And he was looking for something to do. And long story short, I said, listen, here's the deal. I got this opportunity and I got another guy that'll partner up with us that he brings a lot of contacts to the table. And I said, but we would kind of need you to be the ground guy. Like you're going to have to do the bookwork. You're going to have to do, like, I can give you the advice. I can steer you. I can sell it when we go through the racing community. I can do all that, but I don't have time to run another business to get to the point that we can afford to hire somebody to run it. And he agreed. So myself and 2 other guys went in on partners with this. And what we've kind of done is taken it from where it was, which is he had it in like 6 or 8 different stores. And then he was just going to different shows on the weekend. And so what we did is we kept those 6 or 8 stores. We've expanded it to a couple, 2 or 3 more stores, but then we're really pushing it in the racing community, like our local track out here. That's one of the top tracks in the nation. They're selling it for us. We're taking it, selling it out of Brogan's merchandise trailer everywhere we go. So we just kind of decided to focus on the racing community for the barbecue sauce because they're big food people also. It was not, neither one of us three partners needed a business that is our main source of income,
Mm.
right? If we make a little bit extra off of it, great. So we all went into it with a long term 3 to 5 year plan. We're just tell yourself you're probably not going to make any money off of it for 3 to 5 years, and just go out and promote it and do what you can. And if it can break even and sustain itself, and when we run out of barbecue sauce, as long as we got enough money in the bank to order more, like we're good for 3 years. So that's the long version of how that came about. And we're about a year into it now, a little over a year, but things are going really well. We're selling, I'd guess, maybe a pallet or so a month. And then in the beginning, when we first bought it from that guy, we were maybe selling a fourth of a pallet, maybe a third
Mm.
of a pallet. And we've
Yeah.
kind of got it up to a pallet a month now. So it's just like any other business. Once it starts to get wheels, you start seeing progress. And I think that's kind of where we're at right now is we're starting to see the it's starting to grow. We're starting to sell more and more of it each month. So yeah, we tasted it too, and it was good. I was like, ah, it's actually good. Um, like this is sellable.
I love that that gets thrown out of the end, and I also love that it's like it's not the central business to any of the partners involved. So it's kind of like the barbecue's already there, and this is just the sauce on top.
Yeah, yeah. That's a good analogy. That's the perfect analogy.
So since you coming back to the way of being, right, and as a family, there's all these businesses going on. There's all this stuff happening. Some people talk about it as like a work life balance, right? They want to have this division, this split of their time. Other people would view that like for example, Joshua Latimer, not really a fan of that term. He would describe it as seasons. There's not two buckets in your life. It's not work and life. It's all in the one bucket. But maybe in this season you need to be more focused on this or that. How do you sort of view that, and how do you ensure that your family is protected from the predations of the business and the stress of the business, especially when things might be hectic, or some of the seasons of your life that you've even already described? What's that been like for you?
Yeah, so that's a good question because in the beginning it was really hard. I mean, it was almost impossibly hard. But I also think that there's a valuable lesson in there. We went through some tough times as a family the first couple of years, but what the family has seen is that we stuck it out. We didn't quit, right? And now look at the rewards we get. And so, the first season is the tough season. And for us, that was like 2 to 3 years, 2 years, a good solid 2 years. And then we got to the point where we were breaking even and able to pay ourselves a fair wage. And then the last couple of years, we've really got to the point where we're kind of in our giving season. But I don't know. I read a lot on this, and there's an old story I saw once where this old guy, and he was a business owner, and I can't remember the whole context of the story, but something along the lines of somebody followed him and he would go to work, go to his business, and it would be super, super stressful. Then he would come home and and he would act like as if nothing happened. And somebody asked him, "Hey, how do you do that? How do you transition from just the absolute worst day at work to going home and being a good family man and not letting your emotions affect that?" And he said, "Well, I treat my business as a coat. And when I get home, I have a tree outside my front door and I take that coat off and I hang it on my tree. And when I go in, it's time for business or time for family." And
Mm.
so I think in the beginning, like when you've got one business you're focusing on, like that's important. You've got to have some balance. Like the way that we approach it, the way we did it, I honestly do not feel is the healthiest because, like I said, for 2 years, that's all I did. I just lived the business. My wife was basically a single parent, um, and that was hard. There were struggles there, and just through the good graces of God, we made it through it. And the second season was where we could balance it, right? Like we had the business, we would take care of that during the day. At night, it freed us up, gave us some opportunity to be free to go be at the kids events together, to go on family vacations that we had never gone on before, go different places, do different things, kind of be able to shut the business off at night or for a week or so at a time, and then um, get back at it the next day, get back at the grind. And that was kind of like, I would say, our second season, right? And then our third season, I think, is where we're at right now. And our third season was that transition of, wow, we built this business and it's successful. That was kind of fun. Let's maybe work on something else. Let's do it. We got the race thing going. We started to treat that as a business. The barbecue sauce came along pretty quickly after that. The opportunity to join War Plan came along not too far after that. And so now there is really no, like I've said earlier, our life is our businesses that we're in,
Mm.
and we're all in it together, and we're all enjoy it, and all that good stuff. So it's almost as once you seems like once you get to a certain point, it just kind of naturally blends itself together.
Mm.
And then, the fourth season, which we're just kind of turning the corner on, in which I believe that the consulting coaching part of it is going to play a big part of it, is our giving season, right? Like we are in a position that we can, we've always been very giving people. Giving, I was just thinking about this the other day. Giving, most people correlate giving to monetary, right? Like if somebody comes to you and says, "Hey, I've got a Christian outreach group I'm working with. Is there anything you can think of that you could give them to help out today?" Their first answer is, you know what? I don't have any money in my checking account right now. No, 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 man. It doesn't have to be that. Like, can you help them out? Like, they need help with accounting at night. Can you give them an hour, half an hour a week to help them out? Like, there's giving comes in different forms.
Yeah.
So we've always been really giving with our time, and give back monetarily where we can. If we see somebody needs something, we just take care of it. If I'm standing in line at the store and I see that somebody rings up their items and they don't have enough money and they're going to have to put a few things back, I'll just pay for it. Give that way when we can. But now the last 3 or 4 months, we've been really, really blessed that my wife and I have been focusing a lot more of, okay, where can we really, continue giving time and helping that way. But what can we do to structure things to where maybe we can start giving monetarily a little more and helping out some programs, and kind of not by any means do I kid myself. We're not at the philanthropist level yet. Like that's always been one of my life goals. Like I've always said, when I die, I want to be known as a philanthropist, like just giving back as much as I possibly can. But we are at the beginning stages of that. We're like,
Mm.
we can start giving back, and that's really what I'm going to use the consulting business to. This was, last week, Leslie at Warplan and I had about an hour long conversation, and this is the focus of it. I'm really probably going to use the consulting part of our business, or my consulting part of my life. That's going to be the avenue that I really kick it into high gear with, being able to help things and help people and give back. And I'm going to use that part of it to fund. If a church needs $5,000 to repave their lot, we'll give them, here you go repave your lot or whatever. So that's kind of the four different seasons the way I see them.
Oh, there's like so many things. um, one element to that, I guess, coming back to the grocery store example, a lot of people have weird hang-ups in their mind about when it comes to money.
Yep.
And that little description of what just happened there at the grocery store, where that might be, let's say, $200 or something, but not everyone's in a position to do that. Not everyone has the extra $200 to just give someone that week. Like it may literally mean that they don't have enough money in their week's budget to do their own thing. And it reminds me of a Myron Golden video I watched recently, where he was talking about how lots of people say that they want to have enough money to get by, or just enough money, essentially like a contentment sort of an angle. And he was highlighting that is first of all, a really weird financial goal because what you're talking about is survival. You just want to be able
Yeah.
to survive, and then
Yep.
secondly, it's actually selfish because you haven't budgeted in anything for anyone else in that equation. So if you have just enough
No.
money to get by, you can't be that person in the grocery store. And so I think that's really awesome, and I just wanted to highlight and underscore that because it's one of those things that in business and in family and how that all ties together, sometimes we can kind of lose sight of what these things afford us. You go through the different seasons of your life, and maybe you forget what it's like at an earlier season. In terms of the impact that you've already had, maybe this is a good direction to take it because you can forget, and you're looking forward at, okay, we're going to be able to do these good things going forward. But what has been some of the positive impacts, the force for good you've been able to have within your sphere of influence?
Yeah, absolutely. So, actively, probably the biggest thing where we've been able to help and benefit others at this point is we really, really value seems like such a cheap word, but we really, well, our employees. We've got 19 employees, and we look at every one of them almost as like family.
Mm,
Like it's not it's not enough for me. I am not the type of boss, I'm not the type of person that takes the attitude of, if a guy falls on hard times, to look at him and go, well, I don't know what to tell you because I paid you what I agreed I was going to pay you. You
hmm
know, like, so what we've done through the last 2 or 3 years is it's been really cool to see an employee pull up with a cracked windshield and go, hey, you know, Joe, what's up with the windshield? You got a crack in your windshield? You got an appointment to get that fixed or what? Nah, I'm waiting till I get paid next week. You know what? I got a windshield guy. I'm gonna have Cassandra call and get an appointment for it today. It'll just be taken care of before you get done with work. Or, to
mm,
have a guy come to me and say, "Hey, can I use the shop this weekend? My wife's car broke down, and I don't have anywhere else to work on it." Da 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 da. Yeah, you know what? As a matter of fact, use the shop, and on top of it, what's broke down? Have you priced the parts out? Yeah, they're a couple $100. Okay, you know what? Put it on the work account when you go pick the parts up.
yeah,
So that's like the biggest thing, been able to help out there. And then the other stuff has been more random, like I said, the grocery store thing, or
yeah,
seeing that somebody needs something and just going and getting it for them. And so now we're kind of moving into the stage where we're probably, a little more going to try to be a little more focused. We went to My wife and I last week met with a Christian outreach ministry in town here, and her and I actually went down and spent an hour or so down at their facilities, toured it, met with them. We're coming up with ideas of how to maybe like run some specials where $1 from every bottle bought this month goes to this outreach, or maybe 10% of all of our truck washes at the drive-through wash may go to this outreach. So we're kind of moving into that, instead of being more random, like we can
mm.
maybe be a little more centralized.
Systemized.
Yeah, systemized and focused, and really
Mm,
consciously making an effort to do it, because
yeah,
back to the story I told you in the very beginning, that was one of the promises I made to God was, hey, if you give me this opportunity, I promise you I will use it as a vehicle to help others. And I think of that promise literally every single day. Like,
mm,
I think of it because I'm human too. I see people, and I might be in a position to help, but maybe I'm in a hurry, and where normally I would turn the other eye and get on about my day because I am so busy, where I'll remember that promise I made, and instead of, being busy with myself, I notice that cracked windshield and try to do something about it, or I overhear a conversation and try to do something about it. We had an employee that just had him and his significant other just had a baby. My wife sent him a whole bunch of baby stuff to get started with. Just trying to do things like that too. I'm a big believer on this. Giving is, like I said, people tend to um, equate giving with monetary, and
mm,
there it is so much more than that. Like, you can give with your time, you can give with your donating your skills, you can give with, I mean, there's a million ways to give. It doesn't have to be about money. So At the end of the day, no matter how much success you have or how little success you have, whether it be business or whatever you choose to do, if you truly want to be fulfilled, you have got to give more than you receive.
Mm.
Period. Period. Like, and that's what I'm saying. If you separate giving from just purely monetary, because if you, if in your head you continue to equate giving with monetary, that what I just said makes no sense. You can't give more than you receive. You'll go bankrupt, and that's not what it's all about. But if you expand your thinking about giving and what giving truly is, you can give more than you receive. If throughout your day you hear somebody tell you thank you 5 times, well, you can use the word thank you 6 times, and right there, boom, you just gave more than you received that day. So we really raise our kids on two things, that like you've got to give more than you receive. Think about others. Yeah, you might be busy, yeah, you might want to go do this, but somebody over here is asking you to do something that's really important, and you've got to weigh that out. Take care of what needs to be taken care of when you can. The other thing is just being honest with yourself about using the abilities and talents that God has given you, and looking at it in such a way like, there's certain days that I may wake up and I may have something that I really should get done today. And I'm thinking, I don't want to do that. But then I think to myself how that would maybe not negatively affect my employees or my business or my family, but it's certainly not going to positively affect it if I don't do that. And I almost have myself, I think like, well, gosh, you know what? If I don't do that, I'm not letting myself down. I'm letting God down. He's the one that's given me this opportunity, and He's the one that's expecting me to help others. He's the one that's expecting me to fulfill the promise I made to Him 9 years ago. So by me not going to do that thing I don't want to do that would benefit the company and the family, it's not about letting me down. I don't want to let Him down, man. Like,
Mm.
He's given us everything we've got. We're just blessed beyond words. It's just crazy.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And there's one part I wanted to come back to within that. When you're talking about the windshield example, I think you said something along the lines of, that's the biggest thing, is being able to do those. And I would actually disagree with that. I think that the biggest thing for that employee, and probably your employees as a whole, is, you know their regular job, and having that in an environment where that attitude is there, on the day to
Yeah.
day. The windshield thing, or the specific example occasion of where that happens, it's like that's really awesome, that's nice. But every week of the year, they're still, in that they know that that's there as the backdrop of the context in which they're working, and that's like such a huge thing. And yeah, it's really a testament to my point in bringing that up, is how much good can be exerted within the sphere of what you're doing, kind of just in the background, not even when you're actively specifically trying to do or solve a specific problem or a need, but just allowing people to be in that sort of space. And yeah, they're lucky to have you, lucky to work for you. And that's a fantastic thing to have been able to build.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. That's one thing we've really, from day one, I focused on more than anything, is that I really wanted to build a positive culture within my business. I, at times, have put profit below that, like, and just trusting back to the faith, faith that if you do the right thing, God's going to take care of you in the long run. He might throw hurdles at you, and he might throw struggles, and he might make you climb hills. But if you do the right thing in the long term, he's going to take care of you. So there have been times where I've put profit below the actual importance of, I would say to me, the culture of my company and how my employees feel and how they treat others because of the culture they're involved in 8 hours a day at work is more important to me than profit. Like, I would give up
Mm.
a significant amount of that profit to keep the culture if that's what it took.
Yeah, yeah. Just to um, push back on that slightly as well, because there is a challenge, an inherent challenge with that, which is that
Hmm.
you have to look after the business, like things like kind of go from the center out, right? And so a lot of what you've described is like these outer things where it's the life of the employee within the business, and but the business has to be able to be profitable in order for those outer rings to exist.
Yes.
So, have you had times like where that conflict has meant that you've had to make those difficult decisions, and how have you been able to handle that?
Um, yeah, I can think of a few because yes, exactly what you just said. And I think if you create your culture right within your business, that then your employees understand that, hey, because of what I just said and I just explained, doesn't mean that I don't ever ask my employees to do difficult things. But I pretty much follow one really simple rule, especially when it's like looking at a new job or is the weather should they be working in this type of weather or not. I ask myself one thing: if I were in their shoes and my boss was telling me to do it, would I go do it? Would I do it myself? And if I
Mm,
would do it myself, then yeah, we got to do it. And so you got to be really careful, and you have to explain to the employees that, hey, I care about you, but you also have to lead by example. And for instance, if they're out pressure washing and they call me and say, hey, a thunderstorm's blowing through and there's some lightning in the air, like immediately I'm like, we're done. I don't care I don't care how far away it is. I don't care any of that. Get out of there, be done, go shut down. We'll pick up tomorrow or later this afternoon once it blows through. So yeah, you're right. That's a tough balance because at the end of the day, if you're not making a profit, you can't do all these great things.
mm,
So you got to balance that. And the way I balance it, like I said, is by asking myself one simple question: if that employee wasn't here, would I be willing to go do this myself? And if the
yeah.
answer is yes, well, sometimes it's a conversation with the employee explaining to them. As you can tell, I talk a lot, so I over explain a lot. Um, but I think that's to my benefit because like I'm able to explain to my employees that,
Mm,
hey, you know what? I know that it's 40 degrees and light rain out, but there's no lightning in the air, and I know it'd be easier just to give you the day off. But guy, you know what? You remember a couple weeks ago when I put that windshield in your car? Well, yeah. Well, working on days like today is why I can do that for you. So
mm,
that's it.
yeah.
We got to do the tough stuff.
I think you not only talk a lot, you also you communicate those points effectively. And I've found that any time that we've had a problem in our business that has been a bigger problem than it should have been, or hasn't been resolved, or whatever, the fundamental issue is always communication. If
Hmm.
if good communication is there, it's certainly going to make the worst problems better, and it makes smaller problems just like literally evaporate by words, which is insane. But it's super important, and having employees understand the reasons for things, yeah, massive impact. It changes the perception of their reality of what it is that they're actually doing and why they're doing it.
Yes, for sure, man. Proper communication could probably solve 90% of the world's problems right now.
Yeah, yeah, 100%.
And I truly believe that.
All right, any final closing thoughts on family, on business, on any of it?
Yeah, but so humans tend to overcomplicate things. Things really tend to be really simple. Any advice I would have for anybody thinking about getting into entrepreneurship or doing their own thing, whether it be as a side gig or a positive gig, is keep your big perspective in place, right? Keep your commitments, God, family, and then whatever you're doing. And like if you truly make an effort to do that, the rest of it falls into place. It's not always going to be easy. Don't ever quit. Don't ever be afraid to ask questions. I have employees all the time that start out and they're like, I'm afraid to ask a question because at my old job, my boss called me stupid every time I asked a question. And I'm like, no, like that's what I found is the biggest barrier you got to break down with new employees. No,
Mm,
ask away. I would rather ask 100 million questions. A very wise man once told me the answer to every question you don't ask is no.
mm,
Don't be afraid to ask, man. Ask questions, man. If you want to be passionate, other entrepreneurs like Mark and myself, and there's millions of other around the world. And every successful entrepreneur I know wants nothing more than more entrepreneurs to be successful. So don't be intimidated. No matter, if you've got somebody that it could be a valuable source of knowledge for you, don't be intimidated. Don't be offended if they don't answer right away, because they got a million things going on. They will get back to you eventually. Every successful entrepreneur I know is a very giving person and wants to help others succeed. So don't be afraid to seek somebody out, or two or three people. Don't be afraid to look for a mentor. And then when you do find that person, don't be afraid to ask questions. There's a solution for every problem. So, and thank you very much for having me on and let me share a little bit of my story. I enjoy talking about it and hopefully reaching others. And like, that's our goal, right?
Yeah, no, it's been great to have you, and thanks for coming back.
Yeah, absolutely.
Similar to our last conversation, the last episode, it's just been rabbit holes,
Yeah,
and I've enjoyed exploring different rabbit holes with you. It's been
for
great.
sure, man. Anytime, I'd be happy to chat with you.
Beautiful. Awesome. All right. Thanks very much, James. You have a good one.
All right, Mark, have a great day.
Are you picking up what I'm laying down? Are you sniffing what I'm stepping in? If you're looking for a really valuable community centered around building your business, being really intentional with your spouse and kids, and if you think you can tolerate my terrible dad jokes, then join Family-Oriented Business Growers. It's awesome. There's self-paced challenges designed to help you solve key pain points within your business in short, intentional sprints. There's awesome people in there doing awesome things who have experience with stuff that can help you, having stood where you stand. You'll benefit from what's in there, we'll benefit from having you in there, you legend you, and best of all, it's totally free and also free of toxic shenanigans because we don't tolerate none of that. The mission of the group is to help 250 family-oriented home service business owners reclaim 5 hours per week for what matters most whilst growing their business this year. So jump in there and get amongst it. Join via warplan.au, that's warplan.au. Oh no. He's early. Warplan.au. Catch you in there.